Judge a man by his questions rather than by his answers. God is a comedian playing to an audience too afraid to laugh. It is sad that often, to be a good patriot, one must be the enemy of the rest of mankind. God is a circle whose center is everywhere and circumference nowhere. Life is bristling with thorns, and I know no other remedy than to cultivate one's garden. O Lord, make our enemies quite ridiculous. Whatever you do, crush the infamous thing, and love those who love you. Every man is guilty of all the good he did not do. The most original minds borrowed from one another. It is with books as with the fire in our hearths. We go to a neighbor to get the embers and light it. When we return home, pass it on to others, and it belongs to everyone. Being of opinion that the doctrine and history of so extraordinary a sect as the Quakers were very well deserving the curiosity of every thinking man, I resolved to make myself acquainted with them. Christ was baptized by John, but he himself never baptized anyone. Now we profess ourselves disciples of Christ, and not of John. The most surprising circumstance is that this letter, though written by an obscure person, was so happy in its effect as to put a stop to the persecution. You have already heard that the Quakers date their epoch from Christ, who, according to them, was the first Quaker. He advanced toward me without moving his hat, or making the least inclination of his body, but there appeared more real politeness in the open, humane air of his countenance, than in drawing one leg behind the other, and carrying that in the hand which is made to be worn on the head. His first care was to make an alliance with his American neighbors, and this is the only treaty between those people and the Christians that was not ratified by an oath, and that was never infringed. In all countries, where the established religion is of a mild and tolerating nature, it will at length swallow up all the rest. It was in the reign of Charles II that they obtained the noble distinction of being exempted from giving their testimony on oath in a court of justice, and being believed on their bare affirmation. William Penn might, with reason, boast of having brought down upon earth the golden age, which in all probability, never had any real existence but in his dominions. Do not most of us resemble that old general of 90 who, having come upon some young officers debauching some girls, said to them angrily, "Gentlemen, is that the example I give you?" Ancient histories, as one of our wits has said, are but fables that have been agreed upon. Religion may be purified. This great work was begun 200 years ago, but men can only bear light to come in upon them by degrees. I die adoring God, loving my friends, not hating my enemies, and detesting superstition. 100 years from my day there will not be a Bible in the earth except one that is looked upon by an antiquarian curiosity seeker. Nothing can be more contrary to religion and the clergy than reason and common sense. It requires 20 years for a man to rise from the vegetable state in which he is within his mother's womb, and from the pure animal state which is the lot of his early childhood, to the state when the maturity of reason begins to appear. It has required 30 centuries to learn a little about his structure. It would need eternity to learn something about his soul. It takes an instant to kill him. It is very strange that men should deny a creator and yet attribute to themselves the power of creating eels. A minister of state is excusable for the harm he does when the helm of government has forced his hand in a storm, but in the calm he is guilty of all the good he does not do. Ours is assuredly the most ridiculous, the most absurd and the most bloody religion which has ever infected this world. Your Majesty will do the human race an eternal service by extirpating this infamous superstition, I do not say among the rabble, who are not worthy of being enlightened and who are apt for every yoke, I say among honest people, among men who think, among those who wish to think. My one regret in dying is that I cannot aid you in this noble enterprise, the finest and most respectable which the human mind can point out. All men would then be necessarily equal, if they were without needs. It is the poverty connected with our species which subordinates one man to another. It is not inequality which is the real misfortune, it is dependence. A single part of physics occupies the lives of many men, and often leaves them dying in uncertainty. Books, like conversation, rarely give us any precise ideas. Nothing is so common as to read and converse and profitably. We must here repeat what Locke has so strongly urged: define your terms. But that a camel merchant should stir up insurrection in his village, that in league with some miserable followers he persuades them, that he talks with the angel Gabriel, that he boasts of having been carried to heaven, where he received in part this unintelligible book, each page of which makes common sense shudder, that, to pay homage to this book, he delivers his country to iron and flame, that he cuts the throats of fathers and kidnaps daughters, that he gives to the defeated the choice of his religion or death. This is assuredly nothing any man can excuse, at least if he was not born a Turk, or if superstition has not extinguished all natural light in him.